Ultimately, Jiva Tattva is described. Adi Ras means what we are really seeking for is that loving relationship. And we can truly only find that and feel that ultimately when we are beyond our material entanglements and when we enter that divine realm. So it's described that Krishna, everything is expanding from Sri Radha Krishna. This material world also, the spiritual worlds also, and also the living entities, the soul, us. So our highest potentiality is to enter that eternal dance of love. But how? We cannot put Radha out of the picture. This is our Gaudiya philosophy. This is what people like to do. Oh, we'll talk about Krishna, but who is Radharani? Oh, we shouldn't talk about Radharani. Why? This happens in the Ras dance. That's why the Ras dance is so important. So the Ras dance, Krishna played on his flute. And when Krishna played on his flute, what happens? The madness and the intoxicating elixir of that love, when it awakens in the heart and it's calling you. Right? You can imagine whenever you are in the madness of youthful love, right? Shakespearean love, right? Right now we're in Shakespeare's land. So you imagine, oh Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou my Romeo? Right? You're calling out and you're hearing the call, oh, I'm here, come to me. So Krishna, when he plays in his flute, Krishna's flute song is that transcendental call, not material love. A spiritual call, spiritual love. It's a big difference. Srimati Radhika defines love. It's a very beautiful passage. I'll give you a brief description of what is real love. Radharani, once Krishna came to Radharani. Why? Because Radharani, if you look at her life, it's the perfect example of pure love. That's why it's important to understand her position. If you look at the life of Srimati Radhika, it's the perfect example of spotless prem, immaculate love. From her infancy, all the pastimes, when Krishna left Braj, when Krishna left the Rasa dance, when he left her, she became senseless. It was like her life was ready to leave. She fell on the ground senseless when Krishna left. And when he was away in Mathura, in Dwarka, here and there, then Srimati Radhika, she could not even get up. She was laying on a bed of rose petals, and her body was so feverish by the fire of her separation that the soft rose petals would become dry like crisps in a moment. And then they would create a new bed and she would be there. So we don't have time and we don't have capacity to understand, or we won't go into this topic in depth. But we should understand that her love, and also we see how much she had to struggle. That's why Parakiya Bhav, we don't have time also to get into this topic so much. But Parakiya Bhav is important mainly because it's the sweetest relationship. It allows them the sweetest relationship. Parakiya Bhav means externally, Radha and Krishna are not married. So imagine, they're inseparable, but she's married to someone else. And he's a bachelor, right? And he's meeting with everyone. But yet, the beauty of their love is that nothing can hold it back, nothing can stop it. No obstacle can stop the flow of their love. That's why love is described to be like a powerful river, current of a powerful river. You imagine, like the most powerful current, and anything that comes as an obstacle, either we'll jump over it or go around it. It doesn't wait to think or to consider what to do. It knows what to do. Go to your object of love and have your loving relationship. So Srimati Radhika, when Krishna called on the flute, everyone heard their own name being called. This is the interesting detail about Ras Leela. Why? Because every soul, ultimately, their complete fulfillment is in their relationship with God. So it becomes sometimes, when it gets tricky, it becomes easy to forget Radha. Because we think, oh, he's calling me. And you imagine Krishna is calling you on his flute. Oh, come, Ramanandi. Krishna, when he calls, then what do? It's described when Krishna played on his flute, the gopis in Braj, whatever they were doing, they stopped in the middle of it. Some were cooking like chapatis, and they were chapatis like Indian flatbread, and they cook it on a pan and then you put it on the fire. You imagine they're on the fire, and if you leave them, you're only supposed to leave them 3-4 seconds, and they puff up and they flip them over and they take them off. They're sitting there and they're becoming black, and then they catch fire, and then charcoal smell comes. Or you're cooking sweet rice and it starts to burn and you leave it for like an hour. You imagine what happens to the sweet rice? Or like we heard a story of dal. Pran Kishore was telling us a story. He made dal once for a retreat. He thought he turned it off and he didn't, and he come back an hour later. Nice masala, nice spice, burnt spice. So whatever the gopis were doing, when Krishna calls you, none of those things matter anymore. So immediately they gave up everything and they heard their name. Why? Krishna is also calling them. Why? Because all living entities who are lost in this samsara, trying to find happiness, thirsty for love, thirsty for purpose, thirsty for meaning, we can only ultimately find it in that highest aspect, that highest reality beyond matter that we are not meant to be in, stuck in. That's why we talk about samsara. Samsara means where we are bound in material nature like prisoners in these material bodies that are not our true nature. The soul is something higher, something divine, something transcendental. So why are we stuck in matter? Samsara. So when that call comes, we give up everything. Therefore samsara is described in Gopi's household life. They gave it up at once. Pati sutanvaya bratri bandhavan ati vilangyate antachitagata. They gave it up at once. They ran to Sri Krishna. Therefore it's described in our kirtans. Bharajavi tine jamuna kule